All right, ladies and gentlemen, we're back on the
All right,
record for
okay?
People v. Doe, part 2 of a trial after a brief recess, Supreme Court number 2002, continuing cross-examination of Joe Meckley. Counsel, continue your questioning.
May I continue?
Yes, continue your questioning.
All right. Those cases that you participated in that contain the examples of the word quesadilla being used, those are public cases, correct?
Correct. There's
So anybody has access to them.
if you
Objection. Asked. It's the same thing. If it's public, everyone has access.
Yeah, I mean, the question is still fine, but let's not linger on it too long, please. Overruled.
If they are public cases and anybody can know about them, why can't you recall them?
There's a few reasons why. One, when you look at a plea deal, it does not tell you every single piece of evidence levied against someone. It just tells you that they're pleading nolo contendo to the crimes that are levied against them. It does
That's not my question.
specifically say. Okay, well, I'm answering your
Well,
question.
he's answering your counselor.
interrupting me.
Hold on, counselor. He's answering your question. You know, you might not like the answer, but he is answering your question. Okay,
Well,
hey, can we stop having
maybe
people
I should
coming in and
restate,
out of the
'cause-
courtroom, please? Let's. If you're gonna be here, be here. If you're gonna leave, leave. Take it. Pick one, but let's not turn it into a highway back there, please. Okay.
Would you like me to
what
stand
is this
outside
guy
of the
doing?
courtroom on the door?
No. This is the witness bench. This is the witness bench.
Okay.
Come on, get out of here.
All right.
Sit down.
But yeah,
To
you asked
clarify
him.
my
You asked him
question.
why he couldn't remember if it was public record, and he started explaining to you why he couldn't remember, regardless. So I'm gonna let him continue to answer the question, but don't interrupt him. Let him finish the question, or let him finish answering your question.
Thank you, Your Honor. Like I was saying, evidence is not put on a plea deal. Because of that, I do not, unless I memorize or write down someone's name, I do not remember what the exact case is unless it goes to court. In which case, I can find out through court. Otherwise, plea deals, no way of figuring out what evidence was levied against them. They just agreed to the charges.
Okay. So you are as active counsel, so keep records for your clients?
The clients, I am confused.
You participate
Objection,
as a
relevance?
lawyer, correct?
Yeah.
Incorrect.
What relevance?
Well,
what relevance does this have, counsel? I'm going to be honest. We've already tread over this ground, and actually, I'm not even really concerned about relevance at this point. This is a 403 issue. We're getting into wasting the court's time for very little probative value. So why are we
Your
still
Honor,
here?
Well, my
Witness, I'm not asking
my
you
argument
to,
of why
I
we're
want to
here.
hear from the defense attorney.
I believe it's highly important to find out exactly where the witness draws this information from, as multiple of the affidavits state that it was from a briefing that they had received. Now, this briefing was not described clearly, and they said that their primary knowledge of this was drawn from their experience. Therefore, I believe it's highly valuable to the defense to find out where this experience come from and if it's true. Because if we're saying, I can say I have something from experience and explain something, but that might not be true, Your Honor.
Well, and I just want to be clear here. We've heard plenty of testimony about what sources he heard this thing from. You know, we wouldn't get an officer up here on the stand and then probe him about every single individual incidence that he's ever had with somebody using a particular term. You know, there's such a thing as going too far into the qualifications, and right now he's already testified that he can't remember a specific instance, And you're not going to get more than that by then asking him about specific cases he's already told you he doesn't remember. Agree?
That's true. I just wanted him to make sure and confirm that he doesn't remember a
Well,
specific case.
he's
Which was the
confirmed
last
it about
question I was
1,000
gonna ask.
times today. So move on.
During the stop, just before the stop, to be clear, you did not hear any person use the word drugs or quaaludes.
No, I believe the words that were spoken.
You cut out.
No, quesadillas was the only term used to refer to illegal narcotics.
And they were talking about quesadillas. Did they give a context to this?
Well, what do you mean by like if it was the food or the drug?
Did they have... So they were referring to... Did you hear them referring to exchanging quesadillas specifically?
Objection hearsay?
I don't know that this is asking about the truth of the matter asserted, counsel. I think that it's actually defense's point. Well, I guess maybe defense is saying that what they were in fact talking about were actually quesadillas, but I don't know if that's the testimony he's asking the witness to elicit. He's just asking if there was surrounding context, which might give way to maybe a 701 opinion, but I'm not going to make counsel's argument for them necessarily. I am going to overrule that objection, though. Continue.
Yeah, can you?
Yes.
Specifically, when they were referring, aside from being pat down, because you pat someone down to give them a tortilla, they also then, once they both entered the car, he stated, "Yours first," which implied they were trading something. With the term quesadilla also being used, which we've already established quesadilla is a slang for drug, for the quaalude drug, that's your answer. Yes.
Okay, so you... And this is what you heard, correct? You weren't told this, is what I get at.
Correct. I was in the vehicle at this time, and I heard this too.
Can you recall specifically how they said it?
Are you implying like tone of voice?
No, I want verbatim as to your memory what they said in the order that they said it.
You wish for me to call back a now 6-week-old conversation as the minute details of their tone as well as how they said it?
Well, I don't care as their tone, but I want you to recall what they said. So far, you've established that they were trading, but you haven't said how and in the order that they said it.
I believe the order is clearly spoken out in my affidavit, but it was first them coming up to our vehicle asking us if we were the people on the phone. Specifically saying, "Are you the guy on the phone?" Then, after that, he returns to his vehicle, where the other individual who I believe his charge has been, what was his name? Angelo, I'm sorry. The other individual, Angelo, walked up to the client, Doe, in which case Doe asked him the question, "Are you asking for quesadillas?" Then he pat him down. Then they both got in the vehicle. Doe spoke and said, "Alright, yours first." Once that happened, the officers hopped out of the car.
And the officers hopped out of the car on your order, correct?
Incorrect. I cannot order officers. I do not have that ability to. I was a non-uniformed government official. Officers did not have to listen to a single thing I said. Not unless
But
it was
you
going
told them
to
when
court.
to jump out of the car.
I'm sorry, Your Honor, I
No.
didn't hear that question.
So
I didn't
you,
hear the question.
I said you told them when to jump out of the car. Was my
Objection asked and answered?
We've
you
already
asked for me to
closed this, Your
restate the
Honor.
question.
No, no,
Well,
but
he
no,
wanted
but
to
no. The question you asked while he was.
Yeah, and I agree. The witness already answered this question and said no, that you couldn't give orders. And so he didn't do that. That was the answer we got. So that
Okay.
question is stricken.
So in your earlier testimony, though, stated you're telling the officers to get out the car, suggesting a time frame in which to get out of the car. Isn't that true?
Yes, I suggested them to act on their own accord. However, they did not have to listen to me whatsoever. I did not order them to get out of the car. I told them, be ready for when you think is time. Or something along the lines of that. I did not specifically say, hey, get out of the car now.
So your interpretations of the event was based on your experience of a slang word.
Objection asked
That
and
is a-
answered?
He hasn't asked it in that exact
This
form,
was.
but
Okay.
That's a very big oversimplification of it, but yes, that was my interpretation. However, I was not a uniformed officer. I didn't make an arrest. I simply just saw it happen.
And the defendant, well, let me re-ask this question. The officers ordered the defendant to get out of the vehicle, correct?
Not initially. Initially, they wanted to ask him a question about what was happening. However, because the defendant Doe ran from the vehicle, that constituted them to place him under detainment and arrest.
Wasn't the defendant inside the vehicle?
Correct. He got out and ran away. Or attempted
But
to
the
run away. He
officers
didn't even make it to
approached the vehicle. Okay.
Yes,
The
the officers
officers approached the vehicle before he got out, correct?
Correct. And once he saw the officers, he then got up and tried to flee.
And he ran or he walked?
Brisk jog. I mean, I'm pretty slow, so I'd say about as fast as I could run.
All right. And the officers, he exited the vehicle after the officers told him to step out of the vehicle.
No, the officers first introduced themselves as officers and then stated, we need to ask you some questions, in which I'm paraphrasing here, I can't remember exactly the way they said it. However, they did wish to ask him questions, in which he got out of his vehicle, fled in the opposite direction of an officer.
Which direction did he flee to?
Objection relevance?
So, in my opinion, it's relevant as they were sitting in the parking lot by the casino. He says he flees. We're arguing that he didn't flee. It's a misunderstanding. You're saying that he got out and ran. Where did he run to?
Towards the casino, like,
Yeah, well, hold on. I didn't rule on the
like,
pending objection. So I guess how does your question get to whether or not he was actually running? How does that help us get there?
How does it get? Because if this witness testifies to one thing and another witness testifies to another thing, we can use that to.
But how does this
to
show
make
that he
the
wasn't
actual
actually
distinction of-
running? Because that's what you told me it's for. How does this show that he wasn't actually running?
Well, we established the pace at which he was supposedly moving, and when I counter ask other witnesses what happens, they'll tell the whole story of what he actually did, or if he did something else completely different.
Okay.
That will be given through testimony of the other witnesses.
Yeah, the objection is overruled. You can continue on the line of questioning.
Towards the casino.
So
Stop
he
once
moved towards the. Or sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Can you restate the last part of what you said? I didn't hear.
Once he made it to the steps of the casino, fleeing from an officer that they were telling him to disobey the lawful ordering.
Okay, I missed most of that. Try to talk slowly, Mr. Meckley. I know it's frustrating, but... Mr. Meckley? Oh, okay.
There, I typed it out, yeah.
Yeah, that makes it easier.
But at that time, the officers just asked him if they informed him that they had questions. They didn't
Your
tell
Honor,
him
could
to
I get a
stop.
timer for his questions?
I'm going to ask, counsel, how much longer is there on this line of questioning, on this
I'm
cross?
almost done. This is the arrest happens, and
Okay.
then the search, and that's about it, Your Honor.
Okay, can you give me a time
Just have to
estimate
get through
here?
those two.
I'm not going to hold you to a strict limit right now, but just give me an estimate here.
I'd say probably 10 minutes.
Okay, 10 minutes.
I think it's gonna be less.
All right, go for it.
All right. Repeat your question, please. I am kind of out right now.
Okay. When he stepped out of the vehicle, the officer at that point in time ordered him to stop, or were they still questioning him?
They attempted to question him, but as he started fleeing, told him to stop fleeing from them.
And they teased him afterward because he didn't stop playing, correct?
Correct.
And was he armed?
I don't believe.
Okay,
I
so
can
he
double
was
check, however, I don't.
He was simply moving with nothing in his hands. That's what I mean to clarify. He had no weapon in his hands when away from the
Correct, he was-
officer. And do you believe when walking away from an officer when not under arrest, say justification for?
I believe once you
Or
are
I said
stop
walking.
fleeing.
I said move.
And because they told him to stop running away from them, that did warrant them to detain.
But he wasn't detained at that time. They were questioning him, correct?
I wouldn't know. I wasn't the uniformed officer that made that call. I could have been. I don't know. He never asked if he was detained.
But the officer never specifically said he was detained.
I honestly wouldn't know. That is something that
So
I
you-
myself did not hear. I was still in the vehicle at this time. I'm just still witnessing. I can hear them yelling at him. I can hear them saying, "Stop running away." However, I cannot confirm or detained at that time.
You were still sitting inside the vehicle at this time?
For the beginning of it, once they started tasing him, I have left the vehicle.
Okay. So you heard the orders of the officer to say stop running, and the questioning of the officer while inside of the vehicle. And
Yeah, if I may
as he was
get
running
up
away,
to give like an if I may get up to give like an example of how far the vehicle's apart, if you allow that.
I mean, by all means, if it helps explain, then you can, illustrate for us by example.
So, the vehicles were from about there to there. They were well within earshot. Sorry. It was about 2 cars, parking spaces apart from each other. That was it. They were well within earshot. They were very easily to hear. However, once the officers tried to detain him, they started shouting orders over each other. All of them, of course, were to stop fleeing. However, I did not hear one of them shout, "You're being detained." I could have just misheard him. I could have just not heard him. But that is for a question for a different person.
Okay. And when you stepped out of the vehicle, you said that is when he was actively moving, defendant, correct?
When he stepped out of the vehicle, he immediately fled from the officers. Yeah, he did not stand still for a second.
Okay. And after the individual was in cuffs, he's tased and put in cuffs, was he searched?
Only after being read his rights.
So he was read his rights, so he was under arrest at that
Correct.
point?
At that point, he was evading arrest.
And
Failure to comply.
so he was walking away here. He moved away from the officers, but at that point he wasn't under arrest for anything.
I'm
So-
not
hold
the
on.
arresting
Wait.
officer. I cannot tell you that.
So,
Your
we just
Honor.
had counsel crash. I just watched that happen.
Yeah, I was gonna ask if we could go for a quick recess or wait till the council
Well-
returns.
You can continue on. This isn't actually an examination, so Mr. Witz, you can make objections if you'd like, but God willing, we're going to get through this
All
testimony.
right.
So, okay, continue.
Okay. So, and then at that point he was under arrest for evading arrest, but for nothing else.
No, failure to comply as well.
Failure to comply. But,
I'm stating this as if he was to be sentenced right then and there, if they wanted me to tell him what charges it would be, those were the 2 charges that would apply to why he would be under arrest. However, as clearly we're here today, they then searched both his person and his vehicle after reading his rights and found numerous quantities.
okay. Well, I would ask that you wait for continuing to. So he was put into cuffs, and as you said, he was read his rights, and then he was searched there in front of the.
You cut out.
He himself was not searched.
Search
He
there in
himself was
front
not
of
searched
the...
there. However, his vehicle.
Hold on, I'm trying to figure
Casino.
out... Casino, okay, sorry, continue.
Yeah, no, he was in about the casino area, maybe at the steps, just about right behind his.
And the casino has CCTV footage, correct?
Correct. However, the parking lot is not covered by the CC. Trust me, I checked. Only the steps, and he was not at the step where C. I would
And,
also like to mention, there is a photo in the evidence exhibit that shows exactly where his car is.
Okay. And his So he was searched and his vehicle was searched. Was either of the suspects was the suspect given an opportunity to refuse the search?
I am unsure. I was not the arresting officer. I believe so, but that is a question you'll have to ask one of the other arresting.
So at that point in time, then during the searches, you weren't paying attention to him, correct?
No, because I was dealing with Angelo Bobby, who also had tried to fled, in which case they were detaining him as well.
Where are you?
When I'm referring to dealing with Angelo Bobby, I was just following him. To be specific, I didn't want him to get away. I didn't tell him to stop. I didn't. It's unrelated to this case. What happened to Angelo Bobby?
And
You're
just
on.
to clarify, that individual you just mentioned was the passenger, of the vehicle, correct?
Less
Mr.
of the
Angelo?
passenger, more of he walked up to the vehicle and got in with Mr. Doe. So I don't know if that counts as the passenger since they didn't really drive anywhere, but if you want to like use that as a term to refer to the other person arrested at the
Okay. Before we move on to the next question, what were you going to say, Assistant District Attorney? Were you trying to draw my attention to something?
Yes, Your Honor. So back at 1 month.
I think we've all been there before.
Apologies, Your Honor. So again, like what Mr. Joe was saying, whatever happened to the other gentleman, I probably forgot his name. How was it relevant to the case?
That's a relevance objection. Counsel for the defense, if you want to shed some light.
So the witness here stated that he was paying attention to the other individual while this was going on. So with split attention, we're just trying to clarify what exactly was he paying attention to? And how does he know the fine details or not know the fine details of the other situation when he's situation? Drawing that testimony, he had a split focus.
Okay. So I guess you've already elicited the split focus thing. How does diving into the details of the other thing help us understand your case? How does that? What's probative about that?
That was my only question regarding Mr. Angelo, and that was that he said at that question he said that he was paying attention to Mr. Angelo fully, or well, making sure.
yes, my
and I
main
quote,
focus was on Angelo.
Okay. All right. Well, then
that was
I would see
where
This
he
is
that.
testified.
this is
to.
after.
Then I think that's fine, and I'll overrule the objection for now. But I think that if you start treading into that other arrest, we're going to be in impermissible territory.
Yeah,
So.
this is after the he's already been read his rights. By that time, I was already walking towards Angelo, who was backing away. He also didn't.
And after the after Mr. Doe was put in the cuffs and then searched near the casino, uh, um, his vehicle was then subsequently searched, correct?
Incorrect. He was not searched before the vehicle. I believe he was searched after, but I'm not the arresting officer. I couldn't tell you who which one of them. I believe both of them searched it, both Micah and Jetty.
Okay. So the vehicle was searched first then.
Correct. The vehicle was searched first by Operative Mason Peralta.
And also was subsequently searched by, or am I to understand, was the defendant searched by Officer Jetty and Micah, or was the vehicle searched by Jetty and Micah?
No. The vehicle, I believe, was only searched by Detective Mason. Sorry, Operative Mason Peralta. Let's not give him the detective. Operative Mason Peralta, which, as you can see in also the evidence exhibit, he took the photo of the trunk. Also does have the vehicle also does have the license plate visible in the photo, confirming it is Mr.
Okay. So then the other officers only searched the person of the searched the defendant.
Like established and I said earlier, my focus at this point was focused on Angelo. I couldn't confirm or deny at this point.
Your Honor, speaking of that timer.
Yeah, where are we
I
at?
believe, just to clarify, we only have the search. That is the last aspect of the testimony that we wanted to ask here, and we're just confirming how they got to the precinct, or if anything of substance happened after, on the route or at the precinct.
Oh, they got the
That's
precinct,
it.
thanks. No
Well,
longer
I
Sergeant
was
Dan.
just informing the justice
Yeah.
of that regards to what.
Oh,
that was
hold on.
question, sorry.
The officer is.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
The officer's trying to speak to me. So what's going on, officer?
We're leaving.
Why is there a mime out there?
Officer, I can't hear you. Yeah, I'm not hearing.
I will be leaving the city shortly. I'll have a relief bailiff showing up shortly.
Yeah, please do. All right, let's get through this line of questioning. Quickly, please.
Yep. Okay. Once they were searched, the vehicle was searched, and they were taken back to the NYPD. The defendant was offered an immunity agreement there, correct?
That is beyond the scope of my capability. The Detectives Bureau is the only authorized in me.
So you weren't present in a meeting with the district attorney?
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought
the
you phrased
defendant?
it as if I offered it. No, I was there. It's just I didn't act upon it. I didn't authorize it. It was just me being because they wanted me.
But you recall that happening, correct?
I recall it happening.
Well,
Yes.
hold on. Before we get to that, was this discussion part of a discussion for a plea?
Oh.
Trespassing.
Nope.
Yes. It
Oh
was.
Exit.
my
Oh, why is
Alright,
it?
yeah.
It was.
So hold on.
That
let's-
shit's
Sergeant Micah Devon is
Shoot
a
him!
fucking retard. Please, somebody fucking
Your Honor,
rape Sergeant
this
Micah
gentleman
Devon.
is
Shoot him,
Fucking
he's
shoot
touching the
him and
judge.
kill him. Nobody wants him. Nobody wants to talk to him. He is a fucking loser.
Hold it down, hold it
Dude,
down.
can one of y'all just
is
put a
a
round
fucking
in his
cunt.
head? I'll put my hands on it myself. Just shoot him
I don't
already.
hear anything from you,
I'll put my hands on it myself. I'll put hands
Second
on
Amendment,
him.
Your Honor.
Just shoot him.
Hey,
Freeze,
everybody.
freeze,
Nice to see you again.
freeze.
Hey, how you
Hold.
doing, Mr. Public Defender? Having a good
Ask me
day?
a question. I'm genuinely gonna freak out. I do not care what
Dude,
you
Your Honor, may I
Mike,
use the
it's
Second
fine.
Amendment?
Don't tweet.
Your Honor, can I put my hands on him?
Not
Stop
gonna give
Hey,
any
moving.
freeze!
put
I'm gonna
hands on
consider you a
myself.
threat to the judge. Freeze right now. Freeze right now.
Hold it. Hold it. Do not let go.
What do you say? Like, bro, you
Got
guys
the-
Everybody,
you guys
I'm
stand
I'm
up to
putting
your
a
mouth, guys.
25 cent hit
What the
on
fuck
Micah
is
Devon.
going on?
Whoever
Oh,
kills
you're
him
the one
will
watching
get
her do it,
a
mate.
free
Don't blame
ride
me.
in a
I'm not
C8
watching the
2024
This is the
Corvette.
NYPD.
Go ahead and take him.
I'll pick you
I'm
up.
fucking serious.
Proby,
dude.
take him.
You
Someone take
fucking
him.
Dumb fuck.
I'm
Micah
trying.
Devon does not
Hit me,
deserve any
nigga.
rights.
See what happens
Excuse
when
Micah
you hit
Hey,
me.
Devon
shut
does
up.
not deserve anything.
I swear, bro.
Please
What the
get
hell is
Micah
going
Devon
on
out
out
of
there,
here.
too?
Fucking
You have the right
retard.
to remain
Here, I think
silent.
Micah
Get the
Davies is
fuck
getting a
outta
little
here.
impatient,
Say
Your Honor.
willing
Micah
and the
Devon
use-
I think he's
Move.
crashing out, Your Honor.
Move.
Micah Devon
Well,
is an idiot.
Hey.
Nobody
Can we
wants
not
Micah
have that
Devon.
door
That's
be
why he
opened
got
again?
kicked out
Is
of
that
the tech.
okay
Yeah, let's
until the next
not-
one?
Yeah, can we
Hey,
please have silence
I'll stand
here?
outside.
Yes, until
Excuse
you're
me.
relieved, let's not have that.
I'm standing
door
outside.
open
This
again.
door will not be open for the remainder of proceedings.
Yeah, well, until you're relieved, because I know that you do, but you know.
No, the relief's outside right now.
All right, perfect. So what? Where were we just 3 seconds ago?
We were discussing him establishing that there was a meeting between the district attorney
Right. Okay. Was
and
this during a settlement discussion?
this was during when they were in the cells. There was, and it was an immunity discussion. Yes.
Okay, and the discussion was as to who?
During the discussion, both individuals were offered to testify against each other.
Okay.
Court.
Any testimony, unless there's consent from both parties or there's a stipulation, any testimony from that settlement discussion between your defendant and the state, all of that is inadmissible.
We're not talking about what they said, just more that it happened.
Okay.
In
well,
establishing the
stick
timeline
very
of,
clearly to that, please.
Understood, Your Honor.
I don't want to tread into reversible error. Thank you for your help, officer. Hold on. Find my pager in Norma's pharmacy and send me a message. I'll make sure that folks higher up the command chain hear about your assistance today. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yep. Okay. Stick to that.
Okay.
Answer the question. Or no, continue your question.
So, what was the last question?
It just established the meeting. You had already answered to. Again, or...
Yes, I was in the meeting. As a reminder, that is specific agreement that the client was not attempting to sign. I couldn't speak on it. It is class confidential. I am unsure if I'm allowed to speak on the actual contents of the information itself. I can only if it actually they did offer it to us.
Right. All right. That is all my questions, Your Honor. Witness.
All right. State, is there anything incredibly pressing that you need on redirect? If not, we're gonna send Mr. Meckley home and get Mr. Devins.
No, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Meckley, thank you for your time. The court thanks you for
Thank you,
your
Your
service. Please see to it that Mr. Devins is brought in. You are permitted to leave, Mr. Meckley.
We need Micah.
Thank you, Your Honor. I am gonna go into some other matters now.
Okay. All right.
Good luck, Micah.
Now, here's the deal. We've heard a lot of this testimony already. I understand that you guys are going to want to test the cop a little bit more on account of the fact that he was there for the arrest. You are welcome to do that, but we're going to set a time limit on cross. It's going to be 20 minutes. Same thing goes for direct. So, let's please not take up the entire time. Is that possible? Can we agree that we can keep things moving nice and quick?
Yes, Your Honor. I'm going to try.
I'm not-
All right.
To do so.
I'm starting a stopwatch. Come, or I will in a minute. Get up here.
He has 10 minutes.
You have 10 minutes. God. Yeah. All right. Okay, that's fine. Everything's fine. I'm not.
We
Gonna
can
I'm-
just go with as much of the prosecution.
Sorry to do
right
this.
now, and we can have a
I'm sorry to do
retrial
this. Motion for continuance.
Colin just got in. Is he relevant?
Well, it's the testimony that we need.
So how long are you gonna keep me here? That's why I want to ask. Like, how long? So what do you need from me? That's what I would. Okay, whatever. You know.
Your direct examination testimony.
Your Honor,
shooting
for
20 minutes.
All right.
Your Honor, for his sake, I would like to motion for continuance.
Hold on. Let me talk to the officer. Defense, prosecution. If we give you both 10 minutes each, do you think you can get it done? Yes or no?
I'm gonna say no for a full cross.
Then
on,
we're gonna.
I believe we would
go
at
ahead
least
and
need the full
grant
20.
we're gonna go ahead and grant a continuance. Then I'm sorry, Mr. Devins.
Could I,
Oh
in the
my
best interest of the
God!
court, see if you guys could maybe do Jetty's testimony today at least?
That's what I was gonna ask. Is can we do Jetty's testimony and then leave the remaining issue for?
Yeah. I am
Jetty, how long do you
available.
have?
I have unlimited time.
Okay, I
Cool,
don't.
let's get the expert testimony out of here so that way we only have one more trial left with one witness.
Yes,
Jesus Christ.
Yes, I'm. Though I'd prefer it if you don't.
Listen. I will postpone if I can get this over with right now. I will postpone. Please just let me fucking sit here and do what we have to do, please.
Okay, you know what? If you
my
can,
God.
if you can give me 40 minutes of your time at most, okay? They're gonna try to take less time. Then we can get this done and over with. All right?
Yeah.
Hard timer.
Okay.
If you are in the middle of asking a question when it hits 20, I don't care. Your questioning is over. All right? Prosecution. Get up here. I'm gonna quickly swear him in, and then you can get started with your direct. All right. Mr. Devens, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? So help you God, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I swear.
All right. So sworn. Timer starts now, prosecution.
Okay. Good evening. Could you tell me your name, what you do for a living?
Hi, I'm Micah Devon. I'm a New York Police Department patrol supervisor.
And how long have you been an officer?
About 6 months.
Does your work as an officer relate to how you came to be involved in today's case?
Could you repeat the question again?
Does your work as a police officer relate to how you came to be involved with today's case?
I mean, if I guess, yes, I really, yeah.
Could you tell us how you became involved with this case?
What do you mean? I was there.
Well, you got, give us a chronological order of what happened. I apologize.
So, yeah, I was around the area of the car dealership. You know, you're kind of once we got picked up by a man over there, Henry Collins, and yeah, that's how I ended up in there. Yeah, we were in the vehicle.
Could you tell us the full story in chronological order?
Objection. Calls for narrative. We just ask that you ask point questions.
Yeah, break that up a little bit more. Don't just ask him to tell the whole narrative, but, you know.
Could you tell us what led up to this arrest?
We had we overheard a man utter something that gave us reasonable suspicion that he was doing a crime. Or, you know, planning on doing one.
Uh-huh. And how did you come to this?
What do you mean, how did I come to this?
I'm sorry, could you repeat your answer? I might be mishearing you.
Could you repeat your answer? You kind of just went deaf there for a second.
Could you tell us how you gained reasonable suspicion? I apologize for being a bit vague.
So, could you tell how I gained a reasonable suspicion? Is that what you just? Could you
Yes.
ask the question one more time?
How did you gain reasonable suspicion for this?
Because we heard a gentleman speak. Let me do some math. And we kind of were, you know, it wasn't real. It wasn't more so. It was more so a curiosity to see if anything would unfold. Because, you know, we dealt with the.
Let me I apologize. I'm looking at this. Could you tell us what happened during the arrest?
At what point?
Uh, right when he was announced to be arrested or detained.
I believe so. After we once we told him to step out the car, and, put his hands up. That's when he was being placed under arrest.
Could you tell us when during arrest?
Sorry, could you repeat that again?
Could you tell us what happened during the arrest?
He stepped out the vehicle. Well, forcibly kicked him out the vehicle, and he got back in it and tried to flee again, which he was kicked out. And then he ran out, and then he was placed in cuffs by me.
Mm-hmm. What did you do when the defendant started running?
I tased him, like I'm supposed to do when someone's running away from me.
Okay. Did you at all search the defendant or their trunk?
No, not me personally.
Do you have an idea of what was found on the defendant or in their trunk?
Yes, I do.
And could you tell us what was found on the defendant and or their trunk?
Action. He had just
I'd like to
testified
rephrase, I
about
apologize.
Searching. Now he's asking. This lacks foundation. Said the foundation is how did he come to find was on. He said yes.
I apologize. What was the question I was supposed to ask? Uh, ah. Mr. Devon, how do you know the contents of the trunk and the defendant's possessions?
Say it again, sir.
Could you tell us how you came to know what was in the defendant's trunk and or in their possession?
Afterwards, whenever the other officers, said what was in his vehicle.
Okay.
But I
Your
believe
Honor, may
that
I
was for
show?
Okay.
May I show the witness an image or two?
Objection, Your Honor. Hold the evidence. And after it was elicited, we are objecting that the again there is a foundational element how it comes about and to disclose the end the evidence that is trying to elicit the full testimony to see if there was a mishandling that would give the defense a reasons to suppress the evidence. Yes. Yes, there is a foundation.
Let me grab this. All right. May I hand this over to the witness? Exhibit. Let me grab it. One moment. I apologize. This would be People's Exhibit 4. Okay, me. Here. Okay. Mr. Devon,
Yes.
do you recognize this?
Yes.
How do you recognize it?
I remember because I witnessed the other officers there take pictures, and it was shown to me afterwards, following the arrest of these the two individuals.
And what is it?
It's cocaine in the individual's vehicle, a picture of his car, and a
And
picture of himself.
that picture of the car, could you tell me who owns said vehicle?
I believe it was because I was also informed by. I believe I don't think he was. I think it was another officer. It was Shinko Doe, I believe, the green Dodge Monaco.
No, could you tell me who owned the vehicle based on the photo in there?
Shit, I just said Shinko Doe.
Objection. Say,
Oh,
question and answer.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I thought I misheard him. I misheard the witness. All right. Is this a true and accurate depiction of what was in the defendant's possession? The name of the name in the vehicle and the and a photo of the defendant?
Yes.
Objection. This is compounding question.
It's all in the same exhibit. Would it not all be considered one? Okay. And do you know who took these photos?
Yes, it was operative Mason Peralta.
Mm-hmm. Uh, do you recognize that photo as the defendant?
Yes.
Uh, hmm. I don't think so. No. Yeah. No more questions.
All right. Today, Mr. Mike.
I apologize, but the
Hello.
the counselor keeps cutting out.
I heard him just fine, man.
Oh, not just me. I apologize.
Do you hear me? You're
Yeah, you're cutting out a little bit. Just speak slowly and clearly.
okay. How are you doing today, Mr. Micah Devon?
I'm great. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. On May 22nd, you were sitting in Henry Collins' personal vehicle, correct?
Yes, I believe so.
Why were you sitting in his vehicle? I apologize. I don't know if you're taking time to think or you didn't answer.
Oh.
I didn't hear you.
Yeah, I think he's having some difficulty communicating.
Okay, hello?
Yes, we hear
Hello? Okay, okay. Yeah, like I said, we were picked up by him, you know, and he was gonna be bringing us back to the police station, along with other officers in the vehicle as well. This happened, we were out at the car dealership where he picked us up.
But it's true that he did not bring you back to the police station. Immediately, at least.
No, I say we were taking more so of the scenic route, and we just stumbled upon this situation.
And the situation that you refer to, it was Mr. Collins who overheard an individual saying something.
Yes, I believe so.
You did not hear the individual.
It was more so all of us, but yeah, primarily.
So then you overheard an individual saying something specifically.
Yeah.
And what did he say?
Let me do some math.
Objection, hearsay.
I've never asked this question before.
Well, that
Oh,
wasn't
wait.
the objection.
Objection, hearsay.
Sorry, hearsay. You said hearsay. Yeah. Why? Okay, go ahead.
Well, I wanted
What?
to know what your response to the hearsay objection is.
I want to know why the hearsay objection is what reasoning for the hearsay objection.
Well, just repeat your question for the record here, and then we'll have a discussion about it. But
Yep, my question was, what did you hear the individual specifically say?
okay, and so I think we're getting a hearsay objection because you are asking for the statements of another individual, and I guess you can tell us whether or not you feel that's hearsay at all, or whether or not you fit an exception. But that is the pending objection, and I would like to hear a response to it.
Okay, my response to the hearsay is that that individual is not testifying. They can't testify to what they said, and the officer uses that as was stated earlier in the testimony, as reasonable suspicion. So it is important to know what they heard that gave them that reasonable suspicion, since there's no other individual testifying to what was said.
So is what you're saying that the testimony is important for understanding the officer's state of mind?
Yes.
Okay.
I believe it
That
also
falls under
doesn't
the
fall
state of
into.
mind
I believe it falls
exception.
into hearsay exception.
It's under the state of mind exception, and accordingly, the objection is overruled. Continue. I said.
Officer, do you need a
continue.
moment to think about?
You might need to repeat
Could
the
you
question.
ask your question again? I don't. Yeah, I didn't. I don't remember what you
Yes.
said.
What did you hear the individual say?
Sorry, my thing was lagging again. That was just that wasn't really I'm confused on what you said. Like that wasn't really, my reasonable suspicion of what that wasn't like everyone's reasonable suspicion of
Well, hold on.
the gentleman.
Just to answer my question, I asked, what did you hear the individual say? That was the question. That's all you need to answer.
Well, what we heard the individual say that led to our arrest was him saying quesadillas. Him
Well, to
mentioning
clarify,
quesadillas.
what I'm asking right
Objection
now
vague.
is
No, I think the
Okay.
objection. I think the question is specific enough. So overruled. Continue.
He's not being specific
So-
about what we said, though.
I overruled the objection. Continue.
okay. So when you were driving past the car dealership and you were driving in front of the Jewish deli, you said something drew your attention in your earlier testimony. What was said that drew your attention? Do you need a moment to think, or are you...
Hello?
What's going on?
Hello? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay. So could you repeat your question one more time? I'm sorry.
Your Honor, I hope this isn't cutting into my question time, because it's taking
I'm pausing it as
a
best
long
I
time,
can.
not on my part.
Yeah, I know, but yeah. So, go ahead and re-ask the question.
So, as you're passing the Jewish deli, you said earlier that something was said that drew your attention. What was it that was said?
Well, the individual's claiming, he had to do math, but that wasn't the reason. He wasn't being that wasn't us being. That was just being curious, more so of it being the probable cause for the whole situation.
Okay, but earlier in your testimony, you said that when he said he was doing some math, that is what gave you reasonable suspicion. Is that not true?
So I might have been confused on what you were asking me. I'm sorry.
Well, I didn't ask you it. The prosecution here asked that, what did you hear? And you said he was doing some math, and that's what gave you reasonable suspicion. That is what you said earlier in your testimony, correct?
I don't really truly remember it because it was. But yes, I guess I might. Like I said, I was confused.
So you don't remember what you said a moment ago? I'm clarifying, you don't remember what you said a moment ago.
Could you repeat what you're asking me again? Sorry. You're kind
Yes.
of confusing me here, man.
You had earlier said that when the defendant said, let me do some math, that is what made you suspicious and gave you reasonable suspicion. You said that in your testimony. Is that correct?
I might have, but I don't remember saying that now.
Okay. So to clarify, you said that you don't remember what you're saying that, for the record, Your Honor. So then going back to that question that I asked, so you, as a question now, you don't remember what you said a moment ago.
Objection asked and answered.
I don't think he really got an answer to this.
Or no? Yes or no?
No.
So then, Henry Collins was the driver of the vehicle, correct?
I mean, yeah, isn't that already pretty clear? You kind of asked me that before.
If you're in a car, but driving, did any officer instruct him to follow the individual?
Say it again, sir?
Did any officer or you instruct Henry Collins?
It was a kind of
follow?
collective idea to be curious and follow the individual. Yes, it wasn't just his idea.
Describe collective as in, so you wanted to follow the
Yes.
Were you operating then as an officer while in this in his vehicle?
No. Well, yes, I was an officer, but I wasn't. Sorry, I was confused on what you meant. I thought you were saying
On
about
duty.
my rank. Yes, I was on duty.
Okay. Was the car you were in equipped with lights, sirens, and other features needed to make stops?
No.
Objection relevance.
Yeah, I don't think that's relevant. So stricken. Move on.
We would argue that it is because of matter that if it was on duty or off duty officers plays a distinction into how they can operate.
Well,
Your Honor.
again, that's an
man.
issue.
I know what you're saying.
Hold on. That's an issue for suppression. There was no suppression motion in this case, or sorry, there was, but to the extent that that motion took place, it wasn't over this issue. I'm sorry, I'm not going to allow you to raise it now when there's been no opportunity to do research on it or rebut it. So, your question is stricken. Move on.
Okay. So, to clarify then, you're operating as an on-duty officer while sitting in a car in
Yeah.
civilian vehicle.
Objection asked and answered.
Yeah, you already answered. You already asked me that question.
Yeah, I seem to recall that
Oh,
exact
I
question.
don't
Am
believe
wrong?
if we. I don't believe we established a definitive answer for if he was on duty or off duty.
He told
I
you that he
literally
was
said
on
yes.
duty. So, again, stricken. Move on.
Okay. How long were you riding in Mr. Collins' vehicles for?
Objection relevance.
Yeah, what's going what?
If they were patrolling around in the vehicle, it establishes a necessary why were they patrolling around in the vehicle versus if they were just, again, a short scope of the ride, it's important to see or the context of what they were doing in the situation.
Right, but what fact of consequence does that get us to here?
That gets us to whether the officer had reason to be doing
Well, but
again what he was doing.
Whether or not they had reason to do any of the things that they did is all a question for suppression and for, Fourth Amendment issues. You're looking at like motions to dismiss. We're at the trial level. We're not. You aren't bringing a case today to show somehow that this is a defense to the crime, because as a matter of law, it would have needed to have been raised earlier. So
This is true, but to be fair, Your Honor, in terms of depositions, we are aware that depositions on the server rarely, on the city, sorry, rarely take place.
It's a
And
server.
issues of suppressions can rarely be brought up. Therefore, most motions in terms of suppressions happen at the trial level, because not from my part wanting to do so, but because there's no opportunity to bring these up outside of the trial level.
Well,
I
in
mean,
fact, there
I had
is
brought up a
though,
suppression.
counselor, because by, I mean, you've literally had a suppression motion before this court prior to this proceeding, right?
I did have a suppression regarding, I had put this in the suppression regarding the officer operating outside of their capacity. However, what was needed was the testimony for that. I wasn't able to proceed with that
Right,
part of the
and
suppression.
we had allowed some specific testimony as to some of the issues there, and denied the use of testimony for others, just overruling them outright. And I believe, if my memory serves, that was all as to the testimony of people, or sorry, the actions of people like Henry Collins and of Joe Meckley, who have already been on the stand today. I don't think any of that had anything to do with whether or not Officer Devins was on duty. And frankly, he's already testified that he was. I mean, he could have been in a clown car with a bunch of his clown friends. Like, I think that we're past the point of relevance here. Let's just try to keep this moving.
Alright, understood.
Are we looking at that advertisement?
No.
Yeah. Oh shit.
Well,
That's that mob that ran in here earlier.
For somebody else.
Okay. So you were, you had then decided to follow him, and the entire vehicle followed him. Correct.
What do you mean the entire? How did I? Like, could you rephrase that? Like, I mean, yeah, the whole vehicle.
Well, that's what
followed him
you
'cause I'm in the
stated
car.
earlier. You said it was a collective idea.
Yeah, it's it's everyone
but
in the vehicle.
Specifically were as the officer were interested in following this individual. I had already answered this actually as a yes.
I know
so
you kind of already
I'm gonna
asked me
move
this.
on from
You've
this
already
question.
you've already asked me this question before.
Okay, I was establishing in my order of chronological events question that I was going to ask you, but you had started speaking, so I was clarifying. So I'll ask my question here.
Go ahead.
Did the defendant commit any traffic violations for pulling into the?
No, why is that even relevant to the situation, dude?
Yeah,
what the fuck?
Objection relevance.
We're getting to the probable cause for the arrest again. This is the thing that I'm saying that this is stuff that we should have dealt with way earlier. If you thought
Your Honor, we're getting nowhere here.
Like, if there was an issue of probable cause that needed to be addressed earlier, there was a motion deadline for this. I even allowed for additional discussion of issues like this. Stick to the facts.
Can I ask a question?
You know,
No, you cannot.
I will try to.
I just want to know how much.
I don't care.
Okay. I'm gonna
No,
try to
seriously.
stick to the facts of this. However, I do believe that it's relevant in terms of we did not have the ability to give a probable cause deadline.
You
And
did.
Again,
You did have that
establishing
ability.
here-
You did have that ability. It's stricken. Move on. No.
All right.
Continue.
Okay, so when you were in the vehicle at the casino, where was your vehicle sitting? Where was Henry Collins' vehicle that you were sitting in parked at?
Objection
It
to
was in,
relevance?
like, what the fuck are you even? It was spot. Maybe it was in the spot
Well, hold on.
to the right of his green Dodge Monaco,
Yeah, I'm
on the other
gonna
side of the grass, I believe.
I'm gonna keep the witness's answer on the record. That is overruled. That is perhaps the first relevant question that we're getting to here. We're talking about what's actually happening at the time of the arrest. So, overruled.
Okay, and can I ask that you stop cursing at me, please, while in court?
Yeah, please.
All right. Once, what did you hear, or actually, yeah, what did you hear, the defendant say?
Uh, he said, "Are you here for the quesadillas?" You know, that's a known term for Quaaludes.
Okay, you heard this specifically, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I was in the fucking same car, so it's the whole car. Yes, I did hear specifically myself.
Yeah, language, please.
All right. So you were in your car, you're in Henry Collins' car, parked, you said, a couple spaces away, and you heard them say that, you heard the defendant say that, and you said quesadillas is slang. How do you know that quesadillas is slang for Quaaludes?
As an officer, you know, we're trained on certain stuff like that. And I've dealt with people in the past that have used the same term.
So you have
And I
experience
know because I
through
was
your
taught
job.
it as well. Yeah. Yeah,
Taught it?
that's what you're being you're taught certain things as a police officer to know. So that's how I know that.
So can Quaaludes be used in any other context other than drugs?
Yeah, sure they could, but you know that's a very commonly used word to refer to them in a very place that that wouldn't be regular for actual quesadilla.
So in your experience, how or what context do you normally see where quesadillas is used as a term for drugs?
Could you repeat your question again? Your mic cut out.
In your experience in your job, how have you seen quesadillas in their context be used as a term for drugs?
Drug deals.
Yeah, can you give context to how it's used? What context is given in words do they say
I
that
mean,
makes it a drug
someone
deal?
would
That
be in a drug deal claiming that they are selling quesadillas. Another person, yeah, I mean, I'm taught this and I've seen it in the past. I don't really know what you want me to answer more on this.
So if I said I'm selling quesadillas, you would need to arrest me because I'm selling drugs.
You know, I could definitely, that would definitely give me suspicion, but it's not necessarily in the first place. That wasn't the reason. That was the reason that we had started the probable cause in the first place. Yeah, was the quesadillas.
So you were using probable cause as they said quesadilla.
Yes.
Okay, so you were arresting them at that point in time because they said a quesadilla.
Sure.
All right. And isn't it true that Joe Meckley gave you orders to go out and arrest them?
Not orders, suggestions. No.
Okay, so he told you wait till the trunk opens and then go arrest them.
Could you ask your question? Could you ask your question one more time, sir? Sorry.
He told you wait till the trunk opens and then go arrest them.
Yes. Yeah, as in his job at the time, yeah.
And that's a suggestion.
Suggested it.
So you arrested them after hearing quesadillas, their trunk opened, and that's when you and the rest of the officers in the vehicle went over and seized the individuals in the car.
He also patted the individual down, which is also a telltale sign of him doing drug deals. So yeah.
Oh, that wasn't my question. I need a yes or no to my question.
Could you repeat your question one more time?
So after Joe Meckley said, wait till the trunk opens and then go arrest them, that is when you got out the car with the rest of the officers and went over and seized the individuals in the vehicle.
Yes.
And you, as you went over, you ordered the individuals to step out.
As a collective, yeah.
Was there anything else that you told them to do while you were at the vehicle?
No.
No. Okay. And then you pulled the driver out of the vehicle.
Yes.
Objection vague. I don't know if he's doing a statement or like a question.
It's a question which is maybe stated a little bit more forcefully, but that's the mode of cross-examination. It's overruled. Continue.
So, you didn't at any point inform the defendant that they were being detained. You pulled them out of the vehicle.
Well, yeah, step out they were told to step out the vehicle, and then he started running. Once he got back in the vehicle again and was kicked out, he started running. Yeah.
But that's not what you just
He
said.
refused
You
to
said
get
you
out.
went over and pulled him out of
He
the vehicle.
refused to get out in the first place, so that's why he was kicked out the vehicle.
Okay, so you went over and asked him to step out, and
As a collective, it
refused,
wasn't just
and
me.
then you
It was.
You say collective. I'm trying to understand what you were doing during the situation. If you didn't do this, don't say you did it.
Well, isn't as a collective also including myself?
No. I need
How
to
so?
understand what you were doing.
How so?
Just answer the questions.
Because if you weren't...
Don't argue with the witness. Just answer
Okay.
the questions.
So, you were the one who removed him from the vehicle, correct?
Counselor,
Could you ask your question one more
word for
time?
word had this question earlier.
Oh,
I
Jesus
understand,
Christ,
but the
you're gonna
issue
make me
is I
lose
don't
my
know if
fucking
I don't
mind.
know if he's the one.
Objection
You
asked and
said the
answered.
collective. I don't know if this is him
Okay.
or if this is
All right.
another officer.
Officer.
I need a clear answer.
Officer, were you the person who took the defendant out of the car? Was that you personally?
Yes, I was the
Okay.
person that kicked
Alright,
him out
alright,
the
alright,
vehicle,
alright.
like
The
I
answer is
said
yes.
to the
The answer is
person
yes.
asking me
Move
the
on.
question. Jesus.
Don't. Okay, the answer is yes. Move on.
All right. And the defendant, did he comply?
No, because he stepped back into his vehicle and had to be kicked out again.
And when he was removed again,
He ran and he was tased.
did
He was put in handcuffs.
okay? And you were the one.
Yes,
that
I was the one that put him in
specifically tasered him.
handcuffs. Yeah, and I'm the one that tased him. Yes.
And did you search him?
No.
Okay, so you didn't search him, and as you stated earlier in your testimony, you didn't search the vehicle.
No.
Okay.
Well, and that's all your time too. So
So
that's it. All right. Redirect from prosecution.
Nope.
Okay.
all right,
You may step
I
down.
think we're gonna motion here.
Well, the witness can leave, and then we can So you're free to go. Thank you for your time today.
Hey.
Or thank you.
Sorry for wasting your time,
Fucking Christ!
I agree.
I mean,
Well-
he's not wrong.
That's fine. I'll write up the contempt thing in a minute, but
I'll pay for it.
yeah, that's fine.
Count 92, right?
Yeah, I'll decide how much. I'll probably throw some jail time on there too, just because.
I'll just do the 10 grand total.
Well, I'll figure out. So I'll figure out what to do specifically in a minute. So don't do anything yet. All right. So with that, I was gonna hear a motion from defense.
Yes. All right. So our motion is going to be to strike the testimony of the officer as not remembering or being unclear for specific points throughout important parts of the testimony. Additionally, we weren't able to get to the full questioning part of the time of questions that were asked, but also the officer was non-compliant with the questions, I believe, prejudicing the defendant as to what was being said and what we were allowed to get to, making this a prejudicial trial. So both two motions, striking this and then calling for a dismissal due to a prejudiced officer.
Okay. As to the officer, I paused the timer for additional discussions about re-asking questions and things like that, so that motion is denied. But I will hear argument from the prosecution as to whether the testimony itself was clear enough and the officer remembered enough to be useful to this court.
The state does believe that it is enough that his testimony lined up with another witness testimony. It backed up the other two.
Okay, but as to the,
In detail,
the
yes.
specificity and, you know, what was... I mean, tell me, do you think that the testimony was clear about what he was saying? Can you articulate for me what his testimony was about the events?
I apologize. Could you rephrase that in layman's terms?
I mean, can you tell me what he actually came up here and told us about what happened?
He told us what the defendant possessed, what he did, how he ran, how he kicked them out.
Okay. I mean, and among other things, I also seem to remember him telling us the location of everything, where the what car he stopped or what car they approached. I mean, defense, what was unclear about the testimony? Because the stuff that he said that he couldn't remember was related to, I believe, the questioning from earlier, and a lot of that, I think, is pretty fairly attributed to the fact that, as we all understand, there is a communication problem associated with the high volume of people in the city, and I just trust that everybody in this room knows what we mean by that. So, I mean... You know, what about the testimony was unclear?
So the unclear parts about the testimony is, well, one, the events that led up to the initial suspicion, that wasn't, again, there's multiple points in time to where he couldn't recall what was said. Gives question to him as the arresting officer if he was making the decisions or not, or if he was going off of the assumptions of other people. He couldn't recall why he made his decision. One moment, Your Honor. Okay, he then couldn't recall the exact chronological timeline of getting he recalled getting from the dealership to the deli. He actually ate the deli. That was stated on my part. He said directly to the casino. Um, but then also after at the casino, he couldn't recall his own events of how he removed the defendant from the vehicle or
Well,
what
hold
he
on.
said,
Didn't he
which I
tell
believe is
us? Didn't he tell us exactly? And in fact, there was a whole huffy bit about it when he was asked this question. That he removed the defendant from the car, that he got back in, that he removed him again, and then he ran. Didn't we get that testimony clearly on the record?
Oh, I'm talking about when he went up, what he said to the defendant. He wasn't clear about what he said uh, in terms of why he was approaching
Right.
it,
Okay.
what
So
he said, and then
so he doesn't. I guess my understanding is maybe he wasn't exactly clear about the exact words that he used, but I mean I think he made pretty clear for everybody here that he or somebody else there, somebody issued a command for the defendant to get out of the car, and that wasn't followed, and then they removed him, and then he got back in, and then they removed him, and then he ran. I mean, and that testimony so far is uncontroverted.
well, that's what the two other witnesses do mention that. However, he as the arresting officer did not mention that he said something. Again, he said there was other officers there, but the importance is that those other officers aren't here to testify. And I was going to
Right.
get to a line of questioning is why aren't those officers here? Why aren't they testifying as well?
Well,
which is an important aspect to
But
it.
that wouldn't have been in the witness's personal knowledge anyway. The witness isn't with the legal team for the state of New York, for the people of New York. That's something you can certainly raise during your close and say, like, look, they should have brought these other officers here. It's weird that these people didn't come and testify. I mean, I have eyes. I don't see them. They're in the witness stands. They're not on the exhibit list for people who are going to be here. But asking the witness about that stuff would have been improper anyway. So I'm going to overrule this motion. If you think there are deficiencies, and it's certainly possible that there are deficiencies in that testimony, then you are welcome to draw attention to that in your close. But I'm not going to strike the entire testimony as being so contradictory or so unclear as to essentially be useless or to give some strong implication to this court that the witnesses violated their oath. I don't think that has been evidenced at all by the testimony. It is perhaps not as clear as it could have been, but that's the nature of dealing with lay witnesses, is that they are not experts in testifying in court. So there are going to be some things that are a little unclear, and it's the job of the advocates to clear those things up. As you pointed out, you even cleared up some details that you were a little bit iffy about based on the witness's direct testimony, and elicited that testimony about, I believe it was going by the deli. I can't remember exactly what you said now, but you know, we covered in detail the routing stuff, and the witness testified about, to the extent that was necessary, the new facts that we have not heard on the record, and seemed to be consistent on those facts. Again, if you want to attack how those statements are versus like the affidavit for actual conflicts, but I don't think you've done that, at least explicitly. So, yeah, I'm going to overrule this. This witness's testimony remains on the record. Attack it in your close if you'd like. All right. With that out of the way, State, would you like to call your last witness for the evening?
Yes.
Can we? I just want to make clear before we do this. Can we do this? People here. The witness is nodding his head yes.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that?
Yeah. Can we do this? Are people gonna be able to go through this
Limited time.
direct and this cross?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a yes from both folks. All right, perfect. Then you may come to the stand.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna swear you in. All right. Take a seat. Alrighty. Raise your right hand. Do you swear that the testimony that you are going to give today is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
I swear.
Alrighty. Under the pains and penalties of perjury.
Yes.
Alright. So sworn. Prosecutor, begin your direct examination. And I'm going to set the 20-minute timer again for both parties.
Good evening.
Well, actually, hold on. What is this expert testifying about? Before we get started, what is this expert testifying about?
Criminology and street terminology.
Okay, is it just about the street terminology?
And criminology.
Okay, what about criminology? What about criminology are we going to discuss? Like what?
The probable cause, how drug deals work,
Probable
how...
cause is not part of this discussion, so we're not going to talk about that. Probable cause was yesterday, 10,000 years ago's problem. All right.
Okay.
So he's going to testify about how drug deals work and the terminology.
Okay.
Okay. How long do you think it's going to take for you to cover that?
I could probably get it within the 20 minutes.
Okay. I'm going to set it at 20 minutes then.
Alright, 10-1 timer, so...
It starts when you start your first question.
Alright. What is your name and rank?
I am a sergeant of the Tactical Branch of the Detectives. My name is Jetty Jacob.
Okay. How long have you worked on PD?
Around a year or so. Maybe take like a month.
Okay. Could you tell us your experience in criminology?
There's some experiences I've had. I've done a lot of raids. I've done work with detectives in many fields and different aspects of it. Such as I've busted drug deals. I have worked hand in hand with detectives on wiretaps and all the works of that.
Tell me about your experience with drug deals, please.
Some experiences I've had are common factors like cutting down and or using terms to hide that they're using and or selling drugs. It's code phrases.
Could you explain some of those code phrases? I'm really sorry. It's been a long day.
There's a lot. Some include CHQ, and or the food relations such as quesadillas or say macaroni. People say C or a type of cheese. They say they usually like to use the first letter word in relation to food item.
Can you tell us about what street slang quesadilla stands for?
Quesadillas or Q, quaaludes. That is what is usually used for. Some individuals might use a different type of food, but it's most commonly Q or quesadillas.
Would someone talking about quesadillas in the street be probable?
I would deem so. I mean, the only reason why you would be talking about Q in my from my understanding and my own knowledge and experiences, is a drug deal. There were, if it was in the middle of the street, there is no food stand or anything nearby. It is seemed as like very suspicious. Be talking about those, to be talking about that kind of product and or thing, selling and or
I'm sorry, I'm looking through my notes. I apologize. So are we here just for the expert testimony as he wasn't able to get an affidavit submitted in time?
Yeah, I don't, if he's got personal experience with this, he's not a fact witness. They had no notice of that. They at least knew what the expert's testimony was about because we had a discussion about that earlier on. But yeah, we're just talking about the expert stuff here.
Could you go into detail on probable cause?
No.
for what
I said we're not talking about probable cause. So stick to what you said. The other things he was going to testify about, what drug deals are like, what the circumstances surrounding those are, and the use of code words. Stick to that.
Could you could you give us an example of like drug deals related to cars? How those?
Those are called trunk deals and or car deals. They are used mainly if they do not have a safe spot to do the said deal. They're usually like to do them secluded, but some cases they do them in the wide open. I do believe, I think it is, in my opinion, it is it gives criminals a false hope that an officer cannot basically arrest them. They're in a car and they can't the product being traded. But the way that it usually goes is that the one individual will pull up in a vehicle, which then the other individual will hop in. They either A, drive away to a secluded area, or B, stay in the same spot, and they will both open said trunk and exchange product after either patting down to make sure the other individual is not a undercover detective or snitch.
No more questions, Your Honor.
Alright. Then we will go ahead and have the defense up here. Again, 20 minutes. Starts when you start your first question.
What is your formal education in narcotics?
My formal education?
Yes, have you had any form?
I don't know if that's related to anything, but had no physical education on it. taken the
So-
bar. Past the bar. I spent a very long time in the NYPD as a detectives and/or my own operations.
So most of your education then comes from experience, not a formal.
I
It's a yes or no question.
No,
Thank
no,
you.
no, no,
No,
no,
don't go
no,
in there.
no, no,
No,
no,
don't
no,
go in
no.
there.
Henry Collins. Henry. It's me.
don't go
Um,
Stand behind me for the
I'm the
love of
key.
God.
I'm the
Waste
key
your
witness.
time.
I'm the
Did you-
key witness.
Question. I didn't.
No. Yeah, sorry.
I'm the
Can you
key-
repeat
no,
the
I'm
Hold
question?
on, give me a
Yes.
second. Yeah,
All right. Well, let me go ask the judge.
yeah. If this guy doesn't get out of the doorway, arrest him for contempt.
Cuff him and take him away. Why would you open the other door? Are you?
Out of here. Go. Can we not open that door again, please?
Yeah, I'm with you,
Why are you guys?
Mr. Edson. I don't know why they opened up that second door.
I
Why so serious?
Thinking the same thing to myself.
is it legal to put like anthrax on a door so they don't touch it?
We're on the record, prosecutor. Save that kind of joking for when we're
Oh.
off the record, please. Alright. Alright, I'm gonna restart your timer once you ask the question again. Sorry about the disturbance.
Not possess.
Yeah.
Cation.
Everybody in here is getting arrested.
I'm sorry. That
Okay,
was
Jesus
the
Christ,
first
I'm
time.
pausing
Everybody
again.
in this lobby
Hold on. Hey, leave this door closed. Yeah, thanks. Jesus.
I don't understand why.
I don't know. It's like children and sticking knives in like light outlets. They just can't stop doing it. All right, let me. Sorry, and I'm gonna give you like another 10 seconds of time on the timer overall, just because I understand that whole more like 20 seconds, 30 seconds, just because like that was a lot. So reorient yourself. I'll start it again when you ask your question.
So your education for narcotics comes from your experience on the job, not a formal background.
From within this city, it is not from. Unless you,
I didn't hear
unless
the last
you
part.
are.
Yeah, we
unless
missed
it's
the
from
last
an
part.
educational stand.
I
Unless
think
you
he
are
is
speaking
asking you about your
me
education.
studying for the bar. Yeah,
Does
I
it come
understood
from
that.
experience? Yes or no?
I feel like I've done a little bit of education in the sense of practicing a little bit of criminal.
Okay. Is that formal through an office or through a government agency, or is that on your own?
My own.
Okay, so it's an unofficial. Yes, no, I didn't hear you if you answered.
I did not hear what you said.
I'm asking if that learning that you did was through a agency or on your own as unofficial.
On my own.
Okay. So your contact with the words, you mentioned that food items are used as drug terms often. When you hear these words, is it the word itself that draws suspicion, or is it the context in which the word is used that draws suspicion?
It could be both. Since when talking about, say, for example, let's say hamburgers, right, which is another code word for heroin and or H, some individuals will be like, "Do you want to trade some H and or do I have some hamburgers for sale?" Which does draw some suspicion to where an individual could investigate it and make sure that everything is not going against the law. Uh, if used in the context of I have such and such H, I have 6H or 6 hamburgers, it it draws the attention to the point where it is most likely a drug, since an individual would not be selling 6 hamburgers unless they are at a food stand indoor restaurant.
So it's context dependent on where they're located and how they say it, correct?
It's location, behavior, and as tone. It involves their whole body language.
So their body language. Okay. What about for large-scale food vendors that might be, I need 80 pounds of beef or 20 hamburgers for a catering event? How that be a context dependent, or how do you distinguish, really? The question is, how do you distinguish those versus drug deals?
One way you can distinguish both is the actions that they take. So, as if they were going to a back alley to discuss these things, if they were trying to basically close them off from the public eye to discuss said items. Another way is another way of their actions could be seen as a drug deal is them patting down the other individual for wires and or patting them down in general, seeing what they have on them, discussing prices as well is highly suspicious, in the sense of, like, say an individual says, I have 6 hamburgers. That would be like $20. That is a third amount to buy 6 hamburgers.
Cutting out.
Yeah,
do you
thank
want to
you
do that?
for the district attorney, but I'll say those things when it comes up. But yes, you're cutting out so bad. Try and it helps a little bit if you just talk like slowly, close to your microphone and deliberately. So if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's not going to cut into your time, Vasquez. I'm going to pause it while he re-answers.
Okay. Is this
Giovanni,
better?
but I got you.
Sorry, Giovanni. Slip of the tongue. You sound similar to somebody I know.
Yes, I
Alright,
hear you.
What did
clear.
you miss?
I was about to ask my next question, but thank you for your answer. Okay, and this is learned through experience. You mentioned in the city for the most part. Can you describe? So I want to know about the word specifically, quesadilla, because you had mentioned most food items. Most food items are used for words. Why quesadilla? Where does the origin or this word quesadilla, is it at random, or is there a specific origin of this word?
Objection of relevance?
No, this is testing the expert's opinion. That's permissible. Overruled.
So it originates from, I say, around 4 years ago. It's basically from a code word for individuals like criminals to sell said quesadillas and or Q and or Quaaludes. It usually is a food item, since most individuals in the city are restaurants or restaurant employees more specifically. So it gives a false hope that if they say that, they can play it off as them just trying to do business.
And
as well as it's not. Oh, I was sorry. I was having a little stroke there. As well as it's not always a food item. per se. It's majority since it's usually from restaurant employees.
And for your expertise, is this the criminology and street slang? How did you this within the police department? Did you take a class, go through training? How did you achieve this expertise in that field?
I do a lot of trainings. Practically like once every like week to a couple days on multiple aspects of being on duty and being a police officer. One does include keeping my my knowledge on drug slang and stuff like that up to par and what time.
So that expertise is like a certification. Not every officer has it, correct?
I would say so. I wouldn't expect a cadet or probationary officer to have the same expertise as me.
And this just to clarify, I did say this kind of together, but it is a certification, to be clear. Like you achieve this not just garnered through city, but like you go through your office.
You rephrase that? I didn't. I
You
don't
have
understand.
to, yes, for to be classified as an expert in criminology, you have to achieve it as a certification, correct? Like
Not
department.
not on an official standpoint, more in the sense of when you became like when you become a supervisor, which is a rank and or corporal plus, you are expected to have a greater knowledge in the inner workings of crime. And
Okay, so it's rank, but this doesn't, with that rank doesn't come any like classes or formal education from an office. And
I would say that's strictly up to the captain of said bureaus. As I am a detective, I am in the detectives bureau. It does come with the territory learning set. But I would not expect a person of IA to have the same classes.
so okay, so then dependent to the detectives bureau. In terms of other offices, it's not certain, but your bureau it is.
It's written in detectives bureau, but for patrol it's more of a 50-50, and for IA I personally wouldn't expect them to do that, but I am not a person of IA or patrol, so I could not say what they do for their supervisor.
All right, that is all my questions.
All right. In which case, we will go ahead and ask. Is there any redirect?
No.
All right. Then Sergeant, you are excused. The court thanks you for your time. You should probably eat because it sounds like you are suffering from hunger. All right. So here's the deal. All right. This trial has been sort of a complicated mess of testimony and objections. So I think that what I'm going to ask for is a post-trial briefing from both parties, and I can hear the groan already from both of you, I guess both defense and prosecutors who really just want to be done with this case. But I think that it's going to be helpful in trying to help me understand what things you're trying to draw to my attention, and it'll be easier to be articulate than just a normal closing argument. So how does that sound to you folks? Is that agreeable? Because I think it's going to make this whole thing a lot easier.
Yes.
Okay, so here's what I'm going to do. After this...
Question.
Yes.
What is the procedure for a briefing?
And I was going to explain that. That's actually just what I'm getting into. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to release the video from both of these sessions for the parties to have at their disposal. And what you guys will do is you will cite sections in the video that correspond to statements of fact that you make, and then you will apply the law to them. Just like you would during a closing, but in written form, so that they're memorialized in a simple, understandable form, and that we can hopefully resolve this relatively quickly. That way, defense can make all of their arguments about the credibility of witnesses and things. They can make it all in one clear form. They can argue about whether or not the law, whether or not the statutory requirements for the offenses charged are met by the testimony. They can present all of their arguments there, and the prosecution can present all of their arguments as to why the facts meet the law. Normally, I don't like to do that in criminal trials. I have a civil trial where I'm doing something like this. But just because of, frankly, and I'm going to be candid here, because of the scattered and frankly difficult to follow form that all of the testimony in this case is taken, we're going to have to do it this way. I don't think that the court would be serviced by hearing closing arguments now on what is effectively over 2 days, something like 3 to 4 hours of content. So, here's how the briefs will work. They will be simultaneous, which means that they have one due date at one time. Those briefs will be delivered to me in my private pager. I will not review those briefs until the other brief has been delivered to me. Neither side will know what the other side has argued until the briefs are finally pushed out. Actually, yeah, that's how that's going to work. So, if there's anything that I feel hasn't been covered at all, I might allow for a short reply brief with a strict page limitation. I know this is unorthodox, but I don't want to have a situation where, we're death by 1,000 briefs. So the simultaneous brief is my way of solving that problem, and then a reply brief if I feel that that is truly necessary in some way. Again, I'd like to think that you guys are going to be able to summarize all of this relatively succinctly for me. Are there any questions or objections to the form in which these are being done, or any concerns that we want to raise at this point?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. So, I'm going to release these transcripts as soon as possible. That will probably be tomorrow, because I'm going to head to bed here very shortly after we cease these proceedings. So, once I release those, how long do the folks here think that it'll take them to go through the footage and to put together their arguments in brief form, similar to how they might do in a close, for the court to review and then make a decision
on? I'd say for me around 48 to 72 hours.
Okay, well I think that's maybe a little bit optimistic. Defense.
I was gonna say a week would probably be.
Yeah, I was thinking more in the vein of a week.
Damn.
So.
Yeah, I think that's
week.
reasonable.
Okay.
I'm trying to do it with as little time.
But I understand there's a lot going on here, which is why I want to do this instead of having, again, a word, a cluster, a word that I can't say on the record. A cluster. Trying to do these closes now. I'd rather it just be in organized form so that we know what's going on, and then we can, figure out what needs to happen in the way of replies, or if the court is just going to make judgment based on the testimony and the evidence presented and those briefs. So, a week, is that fine with you, defense?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. Then what I'll probably do is I'll set it for due date at like 12. No, not 12 a.m. Like 11:59 p.m. on Friday, the week following this Friday. How does that sound?
Question.
Yes.
That sounds good, but is there a maximum page limit?
On the first brief, I'm going to say no. If I do a reply brief, there will be a strict page limit. If I request a reply brief from either party. Okay. Is that fine? Is the schedule that I'm setting fine for defense?
Can you restate the
Yes.
due date
It would
one more time?
It would be 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the Friday following this upcoming Friday.
Okay, I see. Friday following.
So it's just a little over a week from tomorrow when I will probably post the transcripts.
Got you. So the 27th.
I think that date is right. Yes, that date is right.
That seems pretty cool.
Okay, this is the random guy with
Hello, sir.
How did that guy get in here?
I'm not gonna ask that question.
He just walked in.
Hold on, let's just focus on getting this done, please. Okay, that's fine for everybody here. That's what I heard. So if there are no objections, we're gonna move on to the final thing for this evening. Are there any pieces of evidence that the prosecution from their case in chief would like to admit?
Did we already admit Exhibit 4 by giving it to the witnesses?
You laid foundation for Exhibit 4, but the formal admission of evidence, I do it after the end of the case in chief. So if you want to admit the evidence, you would now move to admit Exhibit 4.
Okay, then I would like to move to admit Exhibit 4.
Is there any objection from the defense?
Yes, we are going to object that. It was stated in testimony that the officer did not directly participate in those events, and when asked, he said he was told about it from the officers who were involved, but did not directly experience that. That leads to uncertainty of those evidence exhibits.
So,
we argue that they should not be admitted.
Yeah, this seems to be a foundation argument and a question about the officer's personal knowledge. My recollection of the officer's testimony, because I did jot this down at the time, was that the officer testified that he was shown the photo on scene by another person who actually took the photo present there at the scene. The 900 series of rules, which controls the foundation for physical exhibits, I can't remember the exact language off the top of my head, but it's something like sufficient to assure the courts that the exhibit is what it purports to be. I'm inclined,
901?
I think 901 is correct. I'm inclined to believe that is sufficient, but tell you what, if you want to make a more extensive argument about the admissibility of the evidence, I'll allow you to tackle that in the brief. You can just argue in the alternative if this evidence is admitted, and then discuss what you might say if the evidence is admitted. But I think I'll make the decision about the admission of the evidence based on what the briefs say and what attention is drawn to about the foundation and the personal knowledge that's laid. Right now, I'm inclined to lean towards admissibility of that evidence, though. Okay, but be sure to write that down, because if it's not in the brief, or, if there's no further argument on it, I'm probably just going to rule that it's admissible. So write down, and I'll tell you, prosecutor, write down as well, that the admissibility of this evidence, whether the foundation has been sufficiently laid, whether the officer's testimony was enough to constitute foundation, is going to be an issue which is tackled in that brief. So we'll and I'll make a ruling on that simultaneously to any ruling or determination I make about guilty, not guilty. And you will get you will get an informal unwritten opinion from me about what the final determination is, so that, you know, your defendant will either be released or begin serving his sentence before you get the full decision document from me. It's just easier if we all do it that way, and then the full reasoning for that decision will be posted at a later date. Okay, are there any questions about how we're going to move forward with what we have?
No, Your Honor.
Defense?
No, Your Honor.
The actual defense, not the KFC bucket man.
Yeah, I thought I said no, Your Honor.
Okay. And then I just, does defense have anything to present in their case in chief? My understanding is not, but it's a formality that I ask.
Sorry, say that one more time.
Does the defense have anything to present in their case in chief?
Not at this moment.
Okay, well, today's trial, so if it's not at this moment, it's not ever. If you're not putting on witnesses or anything like that, then there's no case in chief.
Okay, no, we are not putting forward any witnesses or any evidence.
Okay. That said, I think that concludes all matters for today's trial. Is there anything else that needs to be raised before we talk about the motions?
Nope.
Defense?
No, Your Honor.
Okay. In which case, these proceedings are adjourned. Briefs
excuse
set
me,
and due for
Mr.
the
Judge.
27th at 11:59 p.m. That'll be the court's order. Thank you.
Mr.
Are we
Judge,
still on the
can I
record?
speak?